The solution that I wrote for the abuse program. Um, we've already gotten this far in the introduction. I showed you how to set up your parser to get some number, which must be an integer, which defaults to 3, the number of insults we'll create, to get also a number for the adjectives, the number of adjectives per insult, which is also going to be an integer and which defaults to 2, and then how to get some sort of a random seed value, which here we're going to use an integer value. If this were string, you could still pass in 1. It's just that it would be interpreted as a string and therefore would produce different random results than if you have this validated as an int. So for the purposes of this program, it needs to be an int. But when you write your own code, you're welcome to use strings or whatever else you'd like to use for seeds. I just happen to use ints. Here for I validate the number, both that the number and the adjectives are both greater than 0, and I use parser error to produce errors if there's a problem with those. And the other thing that I get for free is that if these aren't parsable if the arguments are not parsable as valid integers, then argparse will also halt execution of the program. Very important to note that if once parser error is called here, the program stops. So number gets checked, and if there's a problem with number, it will never get to checking the adjectives. The program just stops, the output is created, the error output, and then the program exits with a non-zero value. So that's very important, and it saves you so much writing of code that it's really worth learning how to use this. I showed you in the introduction how to use triple quotes here, string, and split to put in all of these adjectives, and then the split will get rid of the white space in between and the new lines at the ends of these, and just give us back a list of strings um, in between the white space. And so we did that for both adjectives and nouns. And then we we looked in the REPL about how to use both random sample and random choice to get adjectives and nouns. So I'll show you how I would write this, and maybe you came up with a similar solution. I'm going to use the range operator to give me so that I can iterate up to the number that I've been given. So I can say for in range um, up to args dot number. So if I don't give it a starting point, it's going to start at 0, and we can say, just for instance, print in. And let's just see how this works just for the moment. I'll run my program, abuse, and we see that it prints 0, 1, 2. I don't actually need to number the output. I'm not going to, I don't actually need the number. All I need is just to iterate that number of times. So that's a handy way of doing this. You could do it in a number of other ways, maybe with a while loop and a break if you want to. That's completely fine. This is a pretty common idiom, so I'm going to stick to this for in range args number. As it turns out, since I don't need the in, I'm not actually going to be printing it. I'm going to be creating some sort of insult. So let's say insult for now. So insult, insult, insult. I'm going to be creating 3 insults, and so I don't actually need the in. And if I were to, let's see if the problems, yes, here you see that Pylint is complaining that I've defined variables for adjectives, nouns, and in that I'm not using. So it's not that it's really a big deal, but it is something we might call it's failing the smell test. Like, why would you create a variable that you're not using? It looks like it could be a bug. It's not actually one, but we can make this go away by changing in to be underscore, which is basically a throwaway variable. And now if we save that, that error goes away. It's still complaining about adjectives and nouns, and we're going to get rid of that in just a minute as well. So the underscore is a throwaway because we have to put something there. We can't have nothing. That's not valid syntax. We could put in, we could put number, we could put some variable there, but since we don't actually need it, we're going to put underscore. So instead of printing insult, we're going to print you something something exclamation point, right? And this could be, we can make this into an F string here. That would be good. And what we want is to randomly sample from our adjectives the args adjectives. And we want to make a random choice from our nouns. That should work. I'm going to go here. Let's see, I need to get my terminal back. And I'm going to run my abuse and make sure, oh, let's see, I need to go into my abuse directory and I can run the abuse program. Let's see, adjective is not defined from adjectives, okay? Arg is not, oh, args. Okay, let's see if that runs. Great. Oh, almost. So we don't actually want to print, what random sample returns is a list. And so we need to turn that into a string that's joined on commas. So this is getting a little bit too much. I'm going to take this code out and I'm going to create adjectives. I'm going to have to use a different shorthand version there. So I'm going to select these adjectives and I can join them on a comma space, and that will create the adjectives that I want to put there. Let me just run this and make sure it works before I go further. Great. So what I've done here is random sample. What we saw is that random sample, and we saw it over here, random sample returns a list. We want that list to become a new string inside of our output here. So I can use the join string, the string join function to create a new string. And we saw this in the last exercise. We can use, I'm sorry, not in the last one, but in Picnic, we use this where we join the elements on comma space, and that is the thing that will go in between the elements that are returned by our random sample. And then here we're saying you, the adjectives, and then a random choice from the nouns. One of the things I really enjoy about F strings is that I can actually put functions. I can call code inside these curly brackets and not just simply have it interpolate variables themselves. So that should be my whole program. Let's make sure it runs. It seems like it's going to pass our tests. And it does. It passes all of our tests with flying colors, which is fantastic. So that is one way to write the program. Another way, I guess we could just play around with this. I could say while true. So I'm setting up an infinite loop, and I'm basically going to do this same code. And if I have this, let me comment out this. So while true, I need to have some condition that it breaks. So let me show you, if I run this, it will never stop. It'll just keep creating insults, which is fun all on its own. To stop this, I'm going to do Control C, which sends an interrupt. You see here it got the keyboard interrupt, and that it comes in as an exception because I'm not handling that exception, I'm not handling that signal. So that's just if you didn't know how to interrupt your program from an infinite loop. I need to create some condition where I stop the loop. So I could, for instance, initialize some num to be 1. And I can say number is plus equal to 1 if the number is equal to arg's number, then break. That should work. Let me just make sure. Let's see, it's supposed to be 2. Maybe I should start off at 0. It's supposed to create 3. Let me run my test suite and make sure that works. Yes, so What's going on here is that number starts off as 0. I create the first one and I say, okay, I've created 1. Is it time to break? Is this number the same number that I'm supposed to create? And if I up this, say, the number to 5, then I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's created 5 insults. That could be another way that you might have chosen to solve this. The thing that I like about the first solution that I came up with is that it's several lines shorter. It's quite a number of lines shorter. And here I've referenced num, num, num. I've referenced num 3 times. And I don't really like that about this solution here. The number is implied and then immediately thrown away. I don't have to keep up with any of that. I think that this is shorter and easier to understand. So I would prefer this method. Anyway, 2 ways you might have solved this. I hope you thought that was fun, and I hope that you will use this to insult your friends and your enemies. And we'll see you in the next exercise.